and welcome to Own Your Peace. I'm your host, Andie Thueson. And today, as we get ready for the 4th of July, we are talking about freedom. True freedom is built inside your DNA, not outside. Today, we're unlocking your personal freedom codes, the places in your astrology and human design that show how you're meant to break free, rise up, and live on your own terms. We also have a huge transit this week where Uranus, the planet of liberation and freedom, moves from Taurus to Gemini. And that will be on July 7th. So just coming up here real soon. So we will talk about that and what that means for you based on your rising sign, showing you what house is being activated and where you can expect some shifts, some changes, and some personal freedoms to unlock for you. So this is an action-packed episode, so let's dive right in. Okay, so Uranus and Taurus moving to Gemini. This is a big move. Uranus has been in Taurus since 2018. So this has been a pretty long transit. And Taurus, if you go back a few episodes where we talked about Taurus energy, it's very stable, it's very strong, it's very practiced. It wants to move slowly, it wants to be cautious. It wants to be really comfortable. It wants to ground in and root. And Uranus does not like the status quo. It wants to shift. It wants to change. It wants to re-innovate and shift and move quickly. Uranus is where we can expect the unexpected in our lives. And it really is the planet of our personal liberation. So Uranus in Taurus was probably not its favorite place. Because Uranus wants to shift and change, and Taurus is like, whoa, you're moving too fast. We want to be comfortable. I want to get my minky blanket and sip this cocoa. I don't want to shift. I don't want to change. So this has been at odds for quite a while, since 2018. So as we're going forward, I want you to think about in your life, where have you had this resistance to breaking free? Where have things felt slow when it comes to making shifts and changes in your life, or where have things felt erratic and not very grounded? This is an exciting shift and a change that you will feel. And this is a collective move. This is an outer planet. So it's not going to affect us as individually as, let's say, like a Saturn or a Venus or a Mercury transit or Jupiter even. Uranus in Taurus, 2018 to 2025, it really shook up our security. It shook up the way that we looked at money. It shook up the way we looked at our bodies and land and comfort zone. Things shifted and changed. And we had a lot of re-innovation in these areas of our lives during this transit. If we look at specifically money, yes, cryptocurrency has been around for a while, but we saw an uprising and a really kind of a circle back and a momentum movement during this time. There was a lot of insecurity within the markets during this time. We also had that whole time frame of a certain illness that caused a lot of upheaval and shifts and changes into how we did life and how we looked at our bodies and our health. And there was a conversation of change within the medical field that started based on that awakening. So this has been a really cool transit. It helped us teach and helped us redefine stability and our self-worth. It encouraged embodiment, sovereignty, our freedom, and also rewriting our nervous system and what it means to have stability within our nervous system and our body. There has been a lot more conversation around the nervous system and how to calm and soothe our nervous system within the last few years. That's always something that so many people have been paying attention to, but I feel like it's been more of a collective conversation and not something just woo-woo people talk about. It's something that a lot of people are having conversations about, is that regulation of the nervous system and why that's so important. So those are some really big conversations that were had and shifts and changes that we experienced during that transit. Like I said, Taurus really likes security and keeping things the same. So it was really challenged during this transit. And now with Uranus moving into Gemini here, July 7th in 2025, and moving into 2033, there's going to be a revolution to the mind, to our voices, to learning, to language, and duality. Those are all themes that are really a big part of Gemini energy. Freedom comes through ideas and conversation, technology, and flexibility. The shadow here is mental overstimulation and fragmentation. If we look at Geminis, they're very much in their heads and they think and move quickly through life. And then we add Uranus, which also likes to move quickly and make shifts and changes and has this dynamicism to it. These two are going to work really well together, and we're going to see a lot of shifts and movements throughout this transit. And you're going to see things happen a little bit quicker than we've seen them change in the past, because Gemini does also move quickly. It's an air sign, so it's able to shift and pivot. It's also a mutable sign, so it has this flexibility to it. Where Taurus is an earth sign, so it's very grounded. It's a fixed sign, so it's stubborn. It doesn't like change. It doesn't like to move. And then we move into this air sign that's very mutable, that's very shifting and able to make change really quickly. So this is really a beautiful time of getting out of our comfort zones, using our voices, and creating very beautiful changes within our lives with this freedom and this liberation energy. So a really beautiful question to kind of think on right now is where have you clung to comfort? Where have you felt stuck? And what belief are you ready to outgrow? Because we are really redefining our mind landscapes. We're liberating limiting beliefs with this shift. I'm really excited about this, and we'll get into what this means based on your rising sign for you. So we'll start with Aries. So Aries, your third house is going to be activated right now. So that's communication, that's writing, that's your nervous system, that's siblings, it's social media, it's connecting through technology and using your voice. So how are you going to shift and change that with this really beautiful energy of talking and expressing yourself? And doing so on a public platform. So some really exciting things to think of for my fiery Aries rising. For Taurus rising, your second house is going to be activated. So you're going to have a lot of up leveling of your thoughts, of your self-worth, your money mindsets coming in for a reboot and a redirection and a rebuilding, your voice and your values. So those are things that you're going to have big shifts, big changes, ways of seeing things differently, and a lot of pivoting within this area. So remember that Uranus is all about pivoting. It's all about expecting the unexpected. So you might have big shifts and changes within that area of your money. Maybe you have big investments that pay off. Maybe you're challenged in your money mindset and you're really having to spend some time digging out the root causes of your money blocks and your belief in scarcity. So those are some things that, again, that could happen for you based on this transit. And then with Gemini, your first house is going to be activated. So again, there's going to be this shifting and this pivoting of your identity, of your self-expression, and of your independence, really breaking free. I always like to think of our lives moving through where people are always constantly telling us who we are. Everyone likes to put people in boxes. It's just part of being a human. So when we have this chance to redefine ourselves, it's really taking inventory of all the different personas and personalities that have been placed upon us. Some of those are accurate, some of them are not. So there's this freedom and liberation of who you want to be and who you decide you want to lean into moving forward. So these are going to be big shifts for you during this time period. All right, so for my Cancer risings, Gemini rules your 12th house. So this is all about subconscious dreams, nervous system healing. So there's going to be a lot of maybe re-engineering your subconscious beliefs. And maybe out of the blue, you have this memory come up or this belief you didn't even know was there. And now because it's come to the surface, you can clear it. Because again, everything that's in the 12th house is hard for us to see. It's those beliefs that are kind of really ingrained that are running the show that we're not even aware of. And with Uranus transiting there, they're gonna start coming out when you least expect it. So again, Uranus is expect the unexpected. So with that, you're going to have a big up leveling of your subconscious beliefs and really clearing things with that. So for my Leo risings, your 11th house will be activated. That's all about community and social networks and connections to other people. And also your big dreams. What are you wanting to birth during this time period? What big dreams do you see for yourself? This is a really good time to pivot and move and use this energy to shift. Where am I going? Maybe you're creating new communities for yourself and you're shifting the way that we do community. So beautiful things coming in for that 11th house transit for my Leo risings. Now, if we look at Virgo rising, this is your 10th house. Gemini rules your 10th house. So it's your career path. It is visibility and legacy. So you might see some big shifts in your career and how things are moving and the way that you do your work and the way that you put yourself out there to the public. Because remember, the 10th house is your legacy. It's how you're meant to be seen on a larger scale. So those might be things that are here for you to look at and pivot with. Now we look at our Libra risings. Libra risings, your 9th house is going to be activated during this time frame. So your beliefs, your spiritual expansion and travel will be big themes. So you might have a lot of pivoting and changes within the way that you view the world on a spiritual level. It might be a time for you to go to school and learn new things and reinvent yourself through knowledge and information. Also, you might have a lot of unexpected travel opportunities come for you during this transit and allowing yourself to expand through travel. Now for my Scorpio risings, Gemini rules your 8th house. So for you, you're going to have a lot of rebirth during this time frame. Remember that 8th house is all about emotional depth, intimacy, and energetic boundaries. So this is where we have Phoenix energy. It's where we burn things down and rise up from the ashes. So what emotional depth do you need to go to? What esoteric wisdom will help you shift and change and reinvent yourself during this time and setting, really redefining intimacy during this time frame for yourself? So some really beautiful things for my Scorpio risings. Now my Sag risings. For you, this is your 7th house is being activated. So that's all about relationships and partnerships and freedom and connection. So you might find that you do put relationships a little bit different during this time frame. Maybe you set aside limiting beliefs when it comes to your relationship. Maybe you redefine what it means to be in a relationship. Maybe you're able to spark creativity even more so in your relationship. So this can be a really beautiful thing. I know sometimes people get a little nervous with Uranus transiting the 7th house because that means unexpected things in relationships. And of course, everyone goes straight to relationships ending, but it could just be that you go to higher levels together as a couple. If your relationship's not stable and if things are needing to shift and change, this is an invitation to look at that for sure. But if you are ready to up level your relationship and change it and shift it into higher frequencies, this is a great and really expanding your mind together in a relationship or figuring out new ways to work together can be beautiful things for my Sag rising. So don't be doomsday in it. Okay. But pay attention to your relationships as well. Okay. And then for my Capricorn risings, this is your 6th house that's being activated. So you're going to have a lot of shifts and pivoting within your health, your habits, your routines. So this one I just got done with. Uranus has been in my 6th house since 2018. So my day-to-day routine, the way that I did work, the way that I did my routines was in a constant shifting and changing. I had a lot of surprise health issues that came up, or I had to look at my health in a different way. I had to revisit the way that I took care of my body and the way that I looked at my health, and the way that I treated my body. So that was a huge learning experience for me since 2018. That's when I was diagnosed with all my autoimmune issues, with Lyme disease. It's where I learned that I can't go, and that I really need to settle into softer energy where I am taking things day by day and I'm allowing myself to have plenty of rest and not feeling like I have to be on this, hamster wheel of constantly going. And I learned to soften my routines. So these are things that can really be beneficial to my Capricorn rising. I'm not saying you're going to have crazy health issues like I did, but you are going to have to look at your health story. You're going to have to look at the way that you do health. Maybe you're opening your mind to beliefs that you have around health. and the way that you treat your body. Maybe you need to redefine your relationship with food and the way that you fuel your body actually makes differences in the health that you experience during this lifetime. So those are themes that may come up for you during this transit. Now for my Aquarius rising, this is your fifth house. So your fifth house, I always call it the fun house. This is where creative freedom, children, joy, romance. So there's going to be a lot of pivoting and changing and fun and play and like, oh, we're doing this and now we're doing this. A lot of expansion in this area of your life. So this could be a really playful time where now you're really allowing yourself to just move with it and allowing yourself to pivot. Like, oh, that was fun. Now I'm going to do this. That was fun. Now I'm going to do this. So allow yourself to flow with fun. Allow yourself to expect the unexpected. Maybe new children are a surprise. There's always this beautiful energy of building home, but also doing it with fun and passion and play. And really, this is creative expression at its best. So when we add Gemini energy to it, when we add that Uranus energy, it's expanding our mind to see what creativity is and how we express ourselves creatively. So I want you guys, this is what, I could go off on a whole side tangent on this, where creativity is kept in this box where it's dance, it's music, it's art, and those are the things that are creative. I want you to break down the boxes. Creative energy can be so many different things, and we can be creative in a whole bunch of ways. And we have to really divorce ourselves from the fact that creativity means you're only creative if you do these certain things. No, creative can be you created a beautiful layout in your backyard with beautiful plants and you did things in that way. Or it could be you have a creative way of creating products for people. There's so many ways that we can be creative. So open yourself up, allow yourself to have some liberation and freedom in your creative play. That's what we're talking about here. We're talking about liberation and freedom in this area of your life. Going back to that health and habits, I had a lot of creative freedom and liberation with my health because I looked at it differently. I had to think that the way that I was doing things was not the way that I should be doing them. And it caused me to liberate myself from stringent routines that were keeping me sick. So think about how I can liberate myself in this area based on what house you're at. So bringing that back. So for my Pisces rising, your fourth house is being activated. So this is your home. This is your roots. This is ancestry. This is redefining emotional safety for you. How are you going to be liberated in your emotional story? Maybe you have a lot of beliefs that were built in your early childhood that you need to shift and change and liberate yourself from. Maybe there's some wounds from early childhood that need to be risen and cleared and need to be liberated and create some personal freedom there. Maybe you have really toxic connections to your home life or your family relationships, and you need to create better boundaries. This is a great time to do that because it's, again, freedom and liberation. There's also this unexpected element here. So whenever Uranus is in play, there's this freedom, liberation, and what can happen. So keep that in mind. This is a beautiful time. This is your freedom zone. So I'm excited to see how that happens for you and what freedoms you can experience during this time. Okay, so that was a lot about Uranus and Gemini. It's going to be a beautiful transit. Just be careful of overstimulation and too much information because Gemini does have a tendency to, because it loves learning, it lives in the mind space. So sometimes it can be an overexpansion of thought where we're not moving forward because we're so much in our overwhelmed by ideas and concepts and ways of looking at things that nothing ever gets done. I feel like a lot of us experienced that with Jupiter and Gemini for the past year, where we were overconsumed by concepts and ideas and a million different things going through our mind at all times and not really taking any action on one given thing. I'm going to own that for myself. So now it's moving into Cancer. There's that relaxing of the overexpansion of the mind. So that is the shadow side of that transit. But now we're going to see this pivoting and movement. And I believe that it's going to cause a lot of really beautiful new systems to rise. new schools of thought for us to step into as we move closer to, this new earth energy where things are working and building us into higher frequency and vibration. We see it all around us. We're really living in duality right now where we have a lot of people who are scared to death, and it's really sad. You see them and they're so worried about what's going on in the world. And then we have this other existence that's happening, and we're seeing it play out right before us, where there's this excitement and this joy and this wonderment of where we're going next. We know that all these old systems that are no longer serving us have to disillusion themselves so that we can go into newer areas. Check yourself. Where are you at? Are you in fear and limitation because you're so scared that there is going to be a breakdown of stability right now? And I feel that very deeply. But there's also this awesome wonder that as these systems that have worked for us, or, worked in quotations there, we're moving into these new ways of being where we're able to create on a whole new level. We've got to disillusion ourselves and divorce ourselves from the fear and move into these new frequencies of new earth, which are hope, of excitement, of expansion. So you've got to decide what energy and where you want to plant yourself. So I hope if you're here listening to me that you are in the camp of excitement. If you are the excitement of this is something that's happening for us. It can be really big and scary, but it also is really, really beautiful if we choose to put our frequency and our hope into something better. And I really believe this Gemini Uranus transit is going to expand our mind and help us step into those higher frequencies at a really beautiful speed. Okay, now freedom codes in human design. I said we're going to talk about all the things about freedom within our charts. So your chart knows how you're meant to be free. The first thing I want to talk about is your authority. It's your inner compass. It is how we know we're meant to make the best decisions, and things flow more easily for us when we follow our authority. So if you're an emotional authority, ride the wave. Don't rush. You are a person who's meant to sit on things for 24 to 48 hours because you're meant to feel into it based on your emotions, tapping in. If you're an emotional, your emotions are all over the place. You have days where you're really excited, or you have these random emotions. Emotional, defined people have this beautiful gift of getting random emotions, almost like songs on a radio on any given day. Some days I wake up and the song that the universe sent me is anger. I have no reason to be mad. My life is so good, but I just have this anger in my soul. And I used to go into it and be like, oh my goodness, why am I mad? And I would your brains are really smart. They're going to try and figure out why you're feeling mad. So it's going to start looking for why you're mad. And it's going to start sifting through stories. When it does that, stop, don't engage. You're in the story building mode. Then you know it's an emotional wave and you can just play with it and be playful and light with those instead of holding on to it and making it yours by making it a story. So when we are in play, we don't rush. And the reason why we have that 24 hours that you're meant to wait, which sounds awful, I know, I'm an emotional myself, is you need to kind of wade through your emotions and make sure you're not at a high or a low. I know myself, I have made many decisions when I was in a high and I was like, yes, let's do it. And then all of a sudden, a couple of days later, I'm like, oh, actually, I should have said no to that. Ooh. Or I will be in a low and I'll be like, that doesn't sound that exciting. No. And then a couple of days later, I'm out of my low and I'm like, you know what? I should have said yes. That actually sounds fun. So allowing yourself to sit with your emotions and really wait till you're in a neutral space. Does it still feel good? Does it still feel good in your body? Your emotions are meant to guide you. So if you're feeling conflicted or confused, it's a no. But if it just generally sits well in your body and it feels like the next step, and you can't really explain it other than it just feels good, there's your yes. That's where you're meant to move next. Okay, so for my sacral authority, you are meant to follow that inner yes, that excitement within your body, that lit upness. So we hear this a lot on social media. If it's not a heck yes, it's a no. These are my sacral people, especially sacral authority. You are meant to follow your embodied yes. Does this feel like a heck yes to you? Then that's it. That's what you need to do. It is very simple for you when you allow it to be. Does it feel like a yes? Does it excite you? Are you giddy about it? Then that's it. If you're confused or like hemming and hawing about it, like could be it might work out and you're in this place of like trying to kind of almost talk yourself into it, then it's a no. Let it go. Always follow your whole body yes. If it feels good and light and excitement and expansion in your body, then it is a yes. That's your next step. And following that inner compass of that yes will guide you in the right direction. If you have splenic authority, trust your instincts. And for you guys, it's going to be a little bit more time sensitive. It is tied to time. So it is going to be go here now, do this now. It's going to feel like this little guidance voice in your head telling you your next move. And the better and more practice you are listening to that intuitive voice and that guidance, the more intuitive hits you'll get. And the more you'll feel guided by that voice. But if you ignore and shut down that voice, then it's going to be harder to listen to. So I do guide my splenic authority people to really keep a journal. Even the small things. Today, I got this urge or this knowing that I needed to go to a coffee shop. Okay. And I listened. So I went to the coffee shop and I made this amazing business connection that's going to help me launch my podcast or it's going to help me do this. Or, I got this knowing that I needed to turn left instead of right. And then you find out later there was a big accident and you would have been late for work. Keep a journal of these things, even if you don't know the outcome. I got this nudge that I needed to go a different direction. I don't know why. And maybe you will never know why, but just keep track of those knowings and paying attention to them. And it's really gratifying when you kind of see this coming around of like what that intuitive hit was and why. But sometimes you're not always going to know why. And that's okay too. But really learn to rely and solely trust your instincts. You are meant to be very instinctual with the way that you move through the world. You don't have to wade through your emotions. You don't have to listen to your excitement. You're really listening to your intuitive knowing of what the next step is. Okay, now for ego authority, you are meant to follow your desires. You are meant to follow what you want. The divine, God, universe would not put it within your heart if it was not meant to guide you. So I want you to think about your desires as guidance. They are calling you to where you need to go next. So if it's on your heart and you're desiring it, it's on purpose. Trust that your desires are guiding you and liberating you as to where you're meant to be free and where you're meant to go next. So really trust what you feel and desire. And that's kind of a trickier one, I think, to align with because so many times we're told that our wants are silly or that's egotistical to follow our desires and block everything else out. But for you, your desires are very much in alignment. They are meant to guide you. So allow them to. Now, if you are a self-projected authority or a self-directed projector, you are going to be guided by your G center. You are going to be guided by hearing your voice. So what I want you to do is find somebody who can be a sounding board, whether that's a spouse, a friend, because the more you talk things out and hear your own voice, you will see the guidance of what you need to take next. So it's in your voice and hearing yourself talk, really, that you're going to hear the voice. Your friends are not going to really give you guidance. They could. They might say something that like gives you an aha moment. But for the most part, just hearing your own voice and talking it out will give you the answer of what your next steps are or where that answer that you were looking for. If you are a mental authority, that means that it's your ajna, that is your authority. You are meant to weigh things out. You're really the only one who's meant to use their minds to make decisions. You are meant to weigh the pros and cons. You're meant to look at things and your observation and what you see. And I mean this from a very different way. You're not intellectualizing this. You're looking at your observations and feeling into those observations of what feels right. So you're looking at the pros, you're looking at the cons, and you're allowing your inner guidance to guide you based on your observations and using that mind space to be open to seeing things differently. So again, don't over intellectualize. I know my mental projectors have a tendency to do that, but allow yourself to kind of take off that, mental acuity for just a second and just to be observational instead. There's a distinct difference. Although it's small, it's very big. So not overthinking it. That's not what we're doing here. We're looking at our observations and we're allowing ourselves to see what we need to see. That's distinction. And for my reflectors who have no inner authority, allow yourself space and time to move with the moon cycle, where you're allowing yourself to experience this idea, this choice with every version of yourself throughout the moon cycle. And also allowing yourself to rely on your friends and your family to be the sounding board as you're moving through this decision. You're a person who really needs to talk things out, but also sit with things until you really feel grounded in your decision. And that might be talking it out. That might be like, okay, when I was in my fiery Aries time of the month, that felt good. Capricorn grounded me, thought it was a good idea. So allowing yourself to flow with this energy until you really land on what feels good and right for you to move forward. So there is going to be this change. So really look to your authority, that is the path to personal freedom for making decisions for myself. And for your profile lines, as my fifth lines, I want you to have freedom from projections. People are constantly projecting on you their thoughts or what you're capable of doing for them. One of the practices that I have as a 5-1 is I create a projection shield around myself in my meditation. And then for me, I envision it this golden reflective field. And what I do is I set it up so that any projections that come to me bounce right off and are sent back to the sender with love always, but with the knowing that's theirs, not mine. And that's any projections, whether that be good projections where they think I'm amazing and all that. Like I'm honored and I feel good about that. But at the same time, that's their reflection of me. And that's not necessarily me. And then also, obviously, the negative ones where they're projecting their personal feelings on me. And I send those back with love too. And because I'm not any one definition of any one person, that's their experience of me. So I send those back with love. And for my 6 lanes, you really need to have freedom over your time. Allow yourself the space to become the guru that you're meant to become. Allow yourself time to really dive into your passions and your divine innate wisdom. And the same thing with my line 2s. You need time by yourself to really cultivate the freedom of your interest and your natural gifts and talents. For my line 3s, give yourself freedom to experiment. That is like the biggest thing for a line 3. We live in this conditional world where failure is wrong, mistakes are bad. And for 3s, that's how they learn. They need the experimental process. They need to touch the stove and figure out it's hot for themselves. So they need to give themselves freedom to experiment, freedom to make decisions, freedom to fail, because for you, it's not failure. It's just figuring out what's not working for you and moving on. So the faster you move through failures, the faster you're going to get to successes. So stay with that. As my line 1s, you need this freedom to explore and allow yourself to go down a juicy rabbit hole or something that you're interested in, to read books that really interest you. Allow yourself to be free to have time to do so. And then for my line 4s, you're my natural networkers. Allow yourself time to connect with your tribe. Connect and create parties and opportunities for you to connect your people. So that's really important for you as well. So think about those things. Now, when we talk about your centers, if you have undefined centers, undefined open, we use them interchangeably within human design. If it's open, that's where we experience other people's energy. So we are a little bit more prone to conditioning within those sectors. And also where we're meant to really understand and move and just transcend into a place of openness within that sector. And for that, let's use an example. So with an open G center, you are here to really create and craft your own persona. So I talk with a lot of open G center people who have this conditioning around not having an identity or feeling like they don't know themselves or they don't know who they are. I want you to reframe that. If you have an open G center, you are here to define who you are, to craft and create. And you can be this, and you can be that, and you can be this. I want you to embrace the yes and. You're not meant to have any one persona. You're meant to shift and change and allow yourself to create different versions of yourself. and they're all authentically you. Just because you're into this doesn't mean you can't be into this polar opposite thing. That's the beauty of having this open G center is you have this gift of adaptability. You really truly can recreate your persona. If you don't like who you're showing up as, rewrite it, let it go. And that's the freedom that you have with having an open G center. And with an open Ajna, we'll go one more here. You have this gift of being really open-minded. You're really here not to hold any one truth as the final truth. You're really meant to move with truth because we know that truth is fluid. As we grow, as we have different experiences in our life, our truth expands. We move into higher levels of information and knowledge. But we live in a world that truth is the one and only truth, and that's it. Nothing changes. But that's really not what we're meant to do. We're meant to expand and be curious, especially if you have an open Ajna. You're very much gifted in the ability to see all sides. You see the beauty of this part of, we'll do politics. I'm going to go politics here because it's a really great example. So for somebody who has an open G center, you're not meant to be any one given thing. You can identify with some conservatism, libertarianism. You can identify with some liberal beliefs, and you can kind of make your own belief system based on what you find and value within all those different systems. But the second you go all in on one and everybody else is wrong, you're blocking your third eye. We live in a dualistic society. We have all these mechanisms of choosing a side. We're not meant to, especially if you have an open Ajna. You're here to see the yes and. Well, this is true and this can be true. This can be true and this can be true. All of these things can be true, and there can be truth in all things, and there can be lies in all things. So allowing yourself to be open-minded and not holding on to any one and only truth. That being said, we're adults. We need to make choices for our families and what works for us. So, settle on what is truth for you, but then let it go. Like, just because you believe this one thing doesn't mean everybody in your life needs to believe it too. Let them have their own beliefs and then let it go. We have this period of time where people are so connected to their beliefs that it's actually very damaging. Because I don't know about you, but I've never had my mind changed by someone ranting about their beliefs on social media. If anything, I'm either siding with them because I agree with them, or I'm turned off because I don't believe that. And so allow yourself to be fluid. Don't feel like you have to stand on your soapbox all the time. Because if we can be curious and non-judgmental, we can learn some things. So I am trying to practice when I see somebody who's posting something that's contrary to what I have settled on, instead of being like, oh, geez, what are they posting now? I try to be curious. Okay, that's an interesting way to look at it. I never thought about it that way. I don't know if I believe that or can see that, but I give you space for you to have that belief without taking away from what I believe. That's the energy I want us to move into and give ourselves freedom to do so. Freedom to have a belief, but not transpose it on everybody else, and freedom for other people to have their beliefs without judging them for those beliefs. That's the world I want to live in. Okay, so allow yourself to lean into these energies of freedom within your human design. So another thing I want to talk about in our freedom episode is breaking free from conditioning. You're not here to fit in. You are here to be your own piece of the puzzle. You're here to be free, to be who you are. But there's so much conditioning placed upon us. So I want you to kind of sit here for a minute. I want you to think about where you're operating from shoulds. Where are you doing things because you feel like you should or you need to? I challenge that. I challenge what you need to do. I challenge what you should be doing. And I want you to really go back to the freedom of authority. What feels good to you if you're an emotional authority? It might not be what everyone is telling you should do. Trust that. Trust your own inner voice. Your soul is your guides are constantly trying to talk to you and guide you in new, beautiful directions. But if you're sitting firmly because you think you should, it's really hard to pivot. So I want you to really think about where you're shooting yourself. Where are you stuck doing things because you feel like you should? Anytime you feel the energy of like, oh, I should, stop. Do you have to? Does that feel good in your body? Does that feel in alignment that you're having to do this thing you should? Or is it holding you back from really doing what you want to be doing? Even if it goes against societal norms or it goes against what all the so-called experts are thinking and feeling and saying that we should do. Like, I should be giving this and I should be doing this. What feels right and true for you? You might be onto something doing it in a different way. So allow yourself to kind of do a should audit of yourself. I want to talk also about parental culturalized and internalized pressure. So think about parental conditioning. Where have your parents' beliefs conditioned you into the person that you are today? Are those conditions still really present, or have you really done the work to decondition from some of those? Because those are probably some of the hardest, because a lot of those parental beliefs were built into us during those first 7 years where we're not as conscious of those beliefs. So allowing yourself to really have this, in this liberation of mind space with Gemini and Uranus, where are those parental beliefs that you're still holding on to that are no longer serving you? How can you free yourself from those? Also, cultural beliefs. There's this story a lot of personal development coaches will tell us, where it's a story of this family that every Christmas they would cut the ham. They would get the ham and they cut the ends off the ham and put it in the pan. And nobody questioned it. That's just the way they served ham. They'd cut off the ends, and that's what they did. That's how they prepared their ham. And it had been passed down through generations with nobody questioning it. You make a ham by cutting off the ends. So finally, someone says, "What, grandma, great grandma, why do we cut off the ends of hams?" And she's like, not really having an answer, but she's like, and then kind of going back to journals and whatnot. It was because she had a small pan and the ham wouldn't fit. So she had to cut off the ends of the ham so it fit. So where in society and societal conditioning are we following along? Because that's the way everyone's always done. Doesn't mean it's right. It's just what's always been done. So let's question the way things have always been done. Let's rewrite the story on the way things have always been done and really use our authority to set us free and following our own inner guidance onto how we can do things differently and shift our mindset into new and exciting ways of being in this new world that we're creating for ourselves. So I love that. And internalized pressure. Where are you putting pressure on yourself? Where are you keeping yourself small? Good question, right? There's so many times that we put ourselves in a box or we put pressure on ourselves for no apparent reason. Nobody else is putting that pressure on us, but we are putting it on ourselves. So that's another really good place for you to break free of. Where are you putting pressure on yourself? Where are you putting deadlines and situations on yourself that are not feeling expansive? They're feeling restrictive. This is a really good question to ask, because a lot of times we do put, pressure on ourselves for a good cause. Like, I want to create this thing and I'm going to give myself a deadline, and that's keeping me lit up and excited about creating this because I have a deadline on it. But there's a lot of times we put pressure on ourselves for no apparent reason. Like, I have to be a certain weight, or I have to look a certain way, or, oh my goodness, I have to do this. Really spend this time and this energy of where am I putting pressure on myself where I don't need to? And spend some time on that. Journal on it. Ask your guides of where that internal pressure could be alleviated, and give room for more expansion and growth, and allowing yourself to just let go of this unnecessary pressure that you put on yourself. And this can be pretty easy to do. A lot of times we create rituals and routines and things for us that are good and great, but all of a sudden those routines and rituals feel constrictive and they're not serving us anymore. So they have become pressure. Like, I have to do this every day. I have to do this every day. And it just it's not fueling us anymore. It's not feeding our souls anymore. So it's always good to just do a little bit of an inventory of, have our routines and rituals become restrictive and more like pressure than free? Just some things to think about. Okay, freedom over chaos. Is it in alignment with our natural rhythm? Are we fighting the way that we're meant to flow? So as a projector, am I pushing and achieving because I'm shooting myself that I need to, where I actually need to be more in a rest and receive mentality? And that gives me freedom when I allow myself to rest and allow ideas to flow to me, as opposed to being performative and putting myself out there because I should. That's why when I'm in the flow and I'm feeling inspired and I have all these beautiful ideas coming to me, I will crank out 4 or 5 podcasts when I'm in that energy. And then when I'm not feeling as inspired and when I'm feeling kind of weighed down by life, because we all go through it, we all go through these waves, it could be even just part of my cycle, and allowing myself to flow with that. So I really, really, especially for projectors, get into the habit of batch creating, where when you're in that state of flow, crank it out, enjoy it, be creative, have fun with it. So that when you are in those areas where you're not feeling as lit up, you're not feeling as inspired, you're just feeling kind of like worn down, and you need to rest so that you have energy the next time a creative cycle comes. It's when we are tired and worn out. This is true for all energetic types, let's be honest. And we push ourselves forward anyway, that we get to burnout. We get to not be in that creative energy anymore. So when we're in these spouts of creativity and alignment and everything flows, that's when we use this energy to work with. And then we give ourselves freedom and liberation from trying to create from a space when we're not inspired, when we're feeling meh with life. That's when it's actually a signal for us to rest, to recalibrate. Maybe this is where we journal and we take hot baths and we really fuel our souls and our bodies, and giving it time to not be productive. And so that when we do come around to another wave, we're not meeting it with more burnt outness and tiredness. We're actually we're rejuvenated, we're ready. Let's go, let's build, let's connect, let's create again. So ebbing and flowing with our alignment and our natural rhythms. Not all of us, we're not meant to be on all the time. Repeat after me. We're not meant to be on all the time. And that's okay. So when you're feeling lit up and excited and you have this creative energy, go with it, flow with it, align with it. And when you're not feeling your silvery, beautiful, sparkly self, which is totally fine and so normal and human, that's when we need to do the self-care. That's when we need rest. That's when we need extra naps. That's when we binge watch TV and get caught up on our shows or read the books. Allowing yourself and giving yourself a prescription or an allowance slip. And here we go. We're giving Andie notes, doctor's notes for you to lean into when you're feeling inspired and when you're not. And that's okay, right? Now let's talk about how we can ground these beliefs in. How can we take this action of personal liberation, personal freedom, and living in alignment, living with our authority? And how can we set up some really beautiful tools to do that? Some rituals for personal liberation. Here we go. How can we anchor and shift with intentional magic? Do this. Set up candle, paper, something symbolic to break or transform. A string, a flower, allowing yourself to set up a symbolic breaking of the norm. So maybe it's you go and you burn something, or you break something, or you untie a knot. You just want to have something that's a symbolic gesture of freedom and liberation. Maybe you're burning up all the shoulds that you're ready to let go of. If you're a fire sign, maybe you're grounding into the earth and burying the beliefs of the shoulds that you need to let go of. If you're an air sign, maybe you're just saging it out and clearing it with air. Or as a water sign, maybe you do a ritualistic bath where you're allowing all these limitations and beliefs about yourself and all these restrictions that you've placed upon yourself and letting them flow with the water as they go down the drain. Some things to think about. I want you to write down the belief or behavior that you're ready to release. Speak about your personal freedom code. I am safe to speak freely. I am safe to be who I am. Here's a really beautiful thought. I want you to realize that authenticity is the new currency. The more you lean into your truest nature, the most authentic, vibrant version of yourself, not the one you doll down to fit in, the most like out there, crazy, authentic self, or even if you become this crazy character to even fit in that way or to rebel against normalcy, maybe you dial it back and you really kind of feel into who you are. Maybe you aren't the person who dyes their hair crazy colors and you're doing that just for whatever reason. Allow yourself to be really frank, really honest with yourself as to what authenticity looks like. Is it authentic for you to do that? Maybe it's not. Maybe it is. Really ask the questions, because as we move into this new world energy, authenticity is the currency of the future. The more authentic you are, the more true and honest you are to who you are, that is when people are going to really hold on to what you have to say. And that's when you attract the right tribe. That's when you attract your people. These really highly cultivated Instagram profiles where every hair is in place and everything's beautiful and we hide the ugly versions of ourselves, it doesn't feel right. And I'm going to go there. If we look at the whole thing with Meghan Markle and why she's getting so much pushback, is she is trying to cultivate this image of perfection. And as we look through and we see this, we all can easily see it's not authentic to her. She wants it to be, and she's trying to portray that as her authenticity, but it's so ripe with inauthentic management of an image that we're seeing right through it. And that is why she's getting the pushback, because she's not being authentic. We're going to start seeing this more and more where people are not being authentic. They're saying one thing, but doing something completely different. I mean, going into Secret Lives of Mormon Wives. Like Demi, we thought that was really authentic of her in the first season. And now we're looking at it and she is like saying one thing and doing something completely different. The authenticity is not there. She's cultivated a character and now we're seeing the cracks within this character she's created. That's not true. It's not authentic to her. If she just stood there, you know what? I'm going to be a bee. That's who I am. I like being that. And she owned it instead of like, oh, this and this and this, she would be more likable. I mean, not really, because maybe, I don't know. I'm not going to judge that. But remember, freedom comes from being authentic to your truest self. Again, going back to those rituals of burning or tearing or burying or, allowing things to flow with water to clear these untrue parts of yourself that are keeping you constricted and small. Again, this is all about liberation and freedom, this episode. So, and replace it with a declaration of power. So another really great thing is if you write these things out, these areas where you want to be set free. I want to set myself free from these shoulds. This belief I have about myself, I don't want to believe it anymore. I want to believe something different. A great tool, my favorite electronic BFF, ChatGPT, it will help you reframe it and see it differently, or do it yourself. But ChatGPT actually does a really good turn of phrase of reframing things for you. So that can be something that can be helpful. So final thoughts. The universe doesn't want you in a box. It wants you in your full, messy, magical freedom. I want you to really listen to your most authentic self. I want you to lean into the areas of yourself that you feel like are unlovable, that you feel like aren't authentic to you, but they are. Every part, you can be yes and. This is where it gets magical, where we embrace the yes and. I can be this and I can be this, and that's okay. And allowing yourself to show up as the messiest version of yourself and allow yourself to own it, own all of it. And that is where we are going next. And I'm so excited for it. Next week, we're going to be diving into self-expression and how we can really understand how we're meant to express ourselves and what flavor we're meant to express ourselves based on our Mercury sign. It's a really great personal planet to look at for how we're meant to communicate and share our personality online and in the world. So I will join you next week for that conversation. Much love, and we'll see you next time.